Hey guys, it's Kate. Welcome to another speed build and thank you so much for tuning in. In this speed build, I'm building a contemporary mansion on a 64 by 64 lot in Del Sol Valley. After the release of Get Famous, I built quite a few celebrity mansions. Actually, it were 3 mansions, so 1 mansion for each lot in the Pinnacles. This is what the neighborhood in the hills of Del Sol Valley, right at the top above all the other houses and above the city, is called. But now I felt like building a modern mansion because the other mansions had a Beverly Hills kind of feel to them. Some of them almost looked like a palace or castle, and this time I just felt like building something modern. And I have to say that this was such a fresh breeze of air for me because I don't know, just a completely different style, and after building all these other mansions, this was something different and a lot of fun. And as you just saw, I used a round foundation to create a roof terrace, and the cool thing is that when you're raising up the foundation a lot, it almost looks like a round wall, it looks like a round building. And in The Sims, as you guys know, it's impossible to build round walls, but this way you can kind of create the illusion of a round building. And I think it just looks so cool. And here I'm using it's just a decoration object that is part of Get Together. And I sized it down 1 step so it wasn't too tall. I wanted it to be a little bit smaller. And now I'm using it all around the roof terrace to create some kind of fence. I think it turned out quite cool and it looks a little bit futuristic. And for this build, I was going for a combination of round shapes and rectangular shapes. Because when you are looking at the building on the left side, the main building, it's just typical rectangular shapes. I was going for a very classic minimalistic look for the main house, but I wanted to have a nice balanced combination of round and rectangular shapes, which is also why I used a lot of round shapes in the front, as you will see, so it looks balanced. And here I'm using the pedestal that is part of Get Famous. It's just a pedestal, you can put something on it, but here I'm using it to create a nice frame around the windows. This way it just looks modern and unique, and I love to make unique use of different objects. I'm going to switch the color up later though. I think, yeah, I switched them to white. I'm doing the same on the top floor. I like to add a lot of detail to my builds. The thing is, modern builds don't have that many details. It doesn't look like something out of a fairy tale or something. I still wanted the facade to look unique and have some detail, and this was just a neat little way to add some detail to the facade. At the bottom, I added a room. And I used the road, it's just a piece of road that is also part of Get Famous at the top to conceal the fact that, of course, you can connect the room to the round foundation. And this way it just looks like one building, basically. I also used a lot of rocks at the slopes just to work out the terrain and to make it look lovely. Here I'm using the roads that I mentioned. And this room is just a party room, as you will see. I thought that a mansion like this needs some very unique and special rooms. At the bottom, there's also a cinema. I think that the new TV that is part of Get Famous is just perfect for this. And I have to say that building something modern was a lot of fun. Not only because I haven't built something like this in a long time. I think the last time was right after I started my channel. I think maybe it was even my 3rd video or something. So it's been a while, but I just didn't feel like building something modern for a long time, but now I just felt so inspired when I saw the new objects that came with Get Famous. I think they were mostly going for this classic Beverly Hills kind of style. Mansions that look like little castles almost, but there are also quite a few modern objects, the windows and a lot of other stuff. I didn't make use of all the new modern objects, just some of them. I just started building and wanted to see what happens and just added stuff here and there. The only thing that I knew right away was that I wanted to use the round foundation to create this. And also, if you want to create a foundation that is completely round, when you're using the normal foundation, the normal rounded piece that you would normally use, you have to make it smaller to have a nice round shape that is almost completely circular. But when you're using the foundation that has the fence around it, the biggest one I think, then it's completely round when you are putting 4 pieces of them together, I really wanted to have a completely round foundation, and I was trying to work out how I could make use of the normal round foundation piece to make it work, but it wasn't really circular and it didn't look right. And then I thought, okay, maybe it's the piece of foundation with the fence around it that could work, and it did. And to create these stairs, I simply used the terrain tool as you saw, and there is a flattened terrain tool, and I think this one is just so perfect to create flat areas, and it makes using the terrain tool so much easier because you can just raise a section and then you just flatten a section, and this way you can slowly kind of work out the shape that you desire. I know that some people think it's a little bit tricky, but the flattened terrain tool is your best friend when you're working with terrain, in my opinion. At least this is how I like to do it, and personally I never consider terrain tools to be that easy to use, but this way it's quite simple, and I think they did a great job. As I said before, I was afraid that it would be very hard to use, but I think it's quite easy to use, luckily. Here I am building a curved path. As I said, I wanted to have a nice combination of round and rectangular shapes, so I thought I would just build the infamous curved path. I also made a tutorial about this, just check out the description box. I'm going to link it down below. The house itself has 4 bedrooms, and this time I decided to just add 2 kids' rooms and 2 regular bedrooms. Usually I just add 1 bedroom, 1 master bedroom for the parents, for example, and then 1, 2 or 3 kids' rooms or whatever, but this time I wanted to add another bedroom, just so, I mean, every sim family is different. I thought that having another additional bedroom would make things a bit different for this build. Here I'm using the pedestal again, the same one that I used on the facade in the front, and I just created a nice little curve with them again to have a combination of rectangular and round shapes. But I eventually decided to turn them black because I wasn't sure about the color. I may even switch them up later, I'm not sure yet. Sometimes it's difficult to decide which color is the correct one. And I have to say that it's just so interesting to build something modern. When you think about what's modern, what's considered modern, and what's the trend right now and all that stuff, I think this changes so much. And such a random memory, but when I was small, people mostly had furniture in the living room that was made out of dark oak wood. This was just considered modern in the 80s, I guess, at least over here in Germany. So in the 90s, when I was a kid, most people still had these kind of furniture in the living room. I mean, furniture is nothing that you just change every year or month or anything. So most people had this dark oak wood furniture in the houses. When I started to grow older and was a teenager, or still a kid even, it was considered old-fashioned at some point. And then furniture made out of lighter wood, birch wood, and all that stuff was considered modern. And I remember when I got new furniture for my room, when I had this transition from having a kid's room to having a typical teenager room, and I got new furniture. It was so cool and considered so modern, and now when I'm looking back, it just looks so old-fashioned when I'm thinking about this type of furniture. It's today, no one would really want to have that exact type of furniture, and our perception of what's modern changes so much. But when it comes to this type of architecture, contemporary architecture, this never really changed. I mean, when you are looking up Bauhaus architecture, if you have no idea what this is, when you're looking at pictures of that, it all started in the 20s, and there are buildings, there are mansions built during that time that are considered to be equally modern nowadays, and this happened in the 20s. Other infamous Vasily Share, Google Vasily Share if you haven't seen this. It's also from the 20s, and today you could easily put this into your living room if you wanted to. It still looks so contemporary and modern. I think that's very interesting that modern architecture is almost timeless. I think that's so rare because most things, just a perception of things just changes, and sometimes you think, okay, this looks old-fashioned, this is modern, or something is suddenly in style again, for example. But this is just timeless. I mean, not this exact build, but in general, modern contemporary architecture. It's timeless, and it's crazy that you could buy a Bauhaus house from the 20s and just changed a few things up, and no one would even know that it's from the 20s. I think that's just so cool. And here I'm using the windows that came with Get Famous. I just love the small windows. It kind of reminds me of the one mansion in Modern Family. Oh my god, I forgot his name. I forgot his name, but I mean, one character has this big mansion, the granddad, and it just reminds me of this type of style. As soon as I saw these windows, it just reminded me of that. And here I just changed a few things up because I wanted the roof to be one grid wider than the base of the house, and I just changed it up, and I also added a half wall at the top. I think that the interior turned out quite cool. For the kitchen, I went with a kind of red theme. And at first I wanted to not use a lot of color because typically your average modern build just has a lot of white and is quite minimalistic, and I really enjoy this type of look. But then I just felt like using a lot of color. As you can see here, at first I was using a lot of white and black and it looks completely monochrome, but then I just felt like using some color, especially the new carpet that came with Get Famous has so many stunning color options, and then I just switched things up a little bit, but I still went for a very neutral base on the walls when it comes to the colors. Here I'm already adding some colors for the curtains, and still, by the way, I haven't played Get Famous. I'm just building a lot. I just feel so inspired. I'm not using any CC, as you guys know, and as I said before, it's just so inspiring to have new objects. It's just so much fun to play with new stuff, and there are always endless possibilities, but now it feels like there are even more options, and I can't wait to try out some more stuff. And this is the first build since the terrain update that really makes use a lot of the terrain tools, I would say. For the kitchen I tried something different. You can see that I used the island counters around a half wall, and I added a window to that half wall just so it's still kind of a open concept and the Sims could potentially, I mean, of course in the game they don't really care, but it looks like you can just peek through the window, so it just still looks like a open concept, I guess you could say. And I think it turned out lovely. It's not really huge. It's a big mansion. I mean, there's a cinema that I'm building here, a home cinema, and the party room, and also 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. So it's not small, but I mean, it's on a 64 by 64 lot, but I used a lot of the space for the terrain tools, for landscaping, just to create a unique build. And I added a lot of the movie posters in the movies. I'm also going to add the curtains. At first I didn't think of adding the curtains, and then I just thought, okay, this makes completely sense. And I just added a bar, and it's just a little area to hang out. I think it's cool when your Sims have some friends over, for example. I thought that just having the TV screen and some chairs would be boring, so I also wanted to add a bar. And the red just looks so stunning in my opinion. It really looks like a little home cinema. I think having a home cinema is a must for a really crazy expensive celebrity mansion. When you're thinking about the old day of MTV Cribs or just any mansion that you see on TV, as soon as a mansion is really over the top, they have a home cinema. Here I'm working on the first of 2 bedrooms. The other 2 rooms are kids' rooms. I used the curtains that came with Get Famous again. I didn't close the windows fully because I still want to have some light from the outside. I think that the absolute eye catch of this build is the on-roof terrace. I added sofas and chairs that are part of Perfect Patio stuff. I also used the flowers that came with Get Famous, the beautiful flowers that are in a vase. I also used the base game flower that looks like a little palm. I think it's so stunning. I added some armchairs on the outside also. There are no deck chairs or anything like that in game, so I kind of try to build my own ones. The barbecue area is at the balcony right next to the kitchen. I think that it looks so cool because the balcony and the part of the house really just overhang over the hill, just like you would expect for a proper hill mansion. And this is almost it. The speed build is slowly coming to an end. Thank you so much for watching. I sometimes skip some parts of the furnishing process, the hallways for example, and the kids' rooms, but of course this house is fully furnished, as all my houses are. The only exceptions are houses that I'm building for collabs, but other than that I'm furnishing all my houses, and you can find this fully furnished house in the gallery. I'm going to link all the information down below, and as you saw I didn't use any CC, and I'm also going to list all the packs that I used, and I also included screenshots at the end of this video, so you just can see all the rooms that you may not saw in the speed build itself. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. If so, please like and subscribe, and I hope I see you in the next video. Bye bye!